Hello, this is Pastor Keith with another episode of Zion Plus for Zion kids at home. Today I'd like to start off singing together. Let's sing Psalm 23. You know how that one goes? The Lord's my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Well, thank you. Good work. I wanted to start by singing about the Lord is my shepherd because I wanted to talk to you and think about today about leaders and shepherds. Shepherds lead sheep, and we have different kinds of leaders in the world. I want you to think, what kind of different leaders can you think of in the world? Let's think about some different ones. What about this? Here is who's the leader and who's he leading? Okay, think about this. Well, look at that. That is a coach, and he is leading some football players. And it looks like those football players are all watching him carefully and looking straight at him and trying to figure out what the coach wants them to do, because the coach wants them to learn how to do it right, wants each one to do their part, and he wants to have them be successful and have a good game. So that's one kind of leader, a coach. What other kinds of leaders can you think of? How about this? Here is a general and his soldiers. If you look at this guy's hat, the one in the middle, on his hat, in the front of his cap, what are those dark things there? Those are stars. Can you count them? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 stars on that general's cap. That means he is a 4-star general, and that's the biggest kind of general there is in the army. So the leader, the captain, the general of his soldiers needs to lead them, needs to inspire them, needs to give them direction, and give them a good plan so that they can be successful in what they do. So that's another kind of leader. What about this one? Who is that? And what is she leading? Well, those are musicians, some kind of an orchestra, and when the leader of an orchestra is called a conductor. So this is a conductor leading an orchestra. So the musicians know what to do, when to come in, when to be loud, when to go fast, when to slow down, all the things that the conductor tells them and leads them to do. What other kind of leaders are there? Think of this one. Who is this? Do you recognize this man? He's standing there. He's tall. He is, who is he? George Washington, the first president of the United States. We call the leader of our country the president. And George Washington was the first president, and he's leading. He's standing there among the other leaders, probably the congressmen of the country. And George Washington, their leader. Some countries have presidents. Some countries don't have presidents. Some countries have different kinds of leaders. Here's one who's a king, okay? This is King Henry VIII, and he's trying to lead his parliament and all the problems that they had. So different kinds of leaders. President, king, conductor, general, coach. What about this one? Well, who's leading who for what here? These are workmen. These are construction guys. They're getting ready to build something or put something together, and they need like a conductor, but he's called a foreman. The foreman of a construction crew tells each worker what to do, because some things need to be done first. Some things need to wait until those are done. Some things need lots of guys to help with them. Other things, so he has to tell each guy where to go and when and what to do, and then watch and make sure that they're doing it right. So that is the foreman of a construction crew. What about this? Aha. What about this? Who's here? This is a family, and we have a dad and a mom and a big sister and a little brother and a baby. And there's leaders in a family, aren't there? The mom and the dad are definitely leading the family. And then let's look at this one. Aha. Finally, we come to a shepherd. A shepherd leads his flock. He leads the sheep. And isn't it interesting in this picture how the sheep are all lined up and they're walking right behind him? Wherever the shepherd leads them, they go. I think that's an amazing thing about sheep, is that they will follow their shepherd. And if you look in the shepherd's hand here, he's got some kind of a stick or some kind of a rod. And then if you look out at the end of that rod, what's that thing on the end of it? It looks kind of like a hook or a poker, something. So it's, obviously the shepherd knows that if the sheep get in trouble or the sheep start going the wrong way, sometimes they need kind of a poke. And that's why we sing in Psalm 23, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. God has a rod, he has a staff, and sometimes he needs to give us a poke to keep us from getting into danger, getting into trouble. So that's a shepherd and his sheep. So all the different kinds of groups that need different kinds of leaders. What do you need? Do you need a general? Do you need a coach? Do you need a president? You need a king? You need a foreman? You need a dad? You need a shepherd? What do you need? Here's a group, and I'd like you to think about what kind of leader this group needs. Who's this? Do you recognize this group? Well, these are the people at Zion. These are the people who come together and sing to Jesus at Zion. And what kind of a leader do the people at Zion have? Now, all the people in the church everywhere have one leader, and that's Jesus. Jesus is the chief shepherd. He's the shepherd of all the sheep, and he is our king. He's our master. He's our Lord. He is our leader. So we all have Jesus as our leader. But that's not all. We have to do some things with some people up in front that kind of help us decide and watch out. So who's the leader at Zion? Well, the first person we think of is probably Pastor Stu, because he is our pastor, and that word pastor, that means shepherd. So Stu is kind of our shepherd, or at least, actually, he's one of the shepherds, because in our church, we don't have just one shepherd. We have a board of elders. We have several shepherds together. This is our session, and when we talk about a session, we're talking about all the leaders in the church and who they are, and what they do together. They all work together. It's not just one guy up in front, but it's a board of elders. This one's Jim Locklear. Jim, and then there's Dennis Mann, and then that one's Howard Huffman, and that one is John Anderson. And right there in the middle, you've got Gary Young. And right over here, you've got Lee Grossman. And then we've got Wayne Howlett. And then down at the bottom, you've got Keith Gormley. And so these guys together can make up the session of Zion Church. And that we share the leadership, and we have all the leaders together. So when it's time, how do you get to be an elder? How do you get to be on the session? Well, one thing, if you look at these guys, they all have wives and children. And one of the best ways to learn how to be a leader in the church is to be a husband of a wife, because a husband has to learn how to love his wife, how to cherish her, how to honor her, how to care for her. Okay, so if a man learns how to do that, and some men have a hard time learning that, and you're always going to learn more and get better, but that you have to be able to know how to love and lead your wife to be a good elder. And then the other thing is that these guys all have kids, they have families. And so you need to be a good husband. You also then need to be a good dad. You need to be a father to your children. A father needs to love and care for his children, and he needs to discipline his children when they start acting naughty. Dad has to say stop it and teach them what they need to do. Okay, so if you are a good husband and a good father, then it's a good chance that you can be a good leader in the church too. So that's how we do. So when it's time to have a new shepherd, a new leader for Zion, you've got the whole church here. And so we say, isn't it time to have more than just these guys that we've had? And so you ask the church, who else should be a leader? Who else should be an elder? And so they come up with some names, and people get ideas, and people make suggestions. And then the session goes back, and the session looks at those names and talks to these guys and decides, this one and this one's ready, and this one needs to wait, and maybe this one needs to work on things or whatever. And so we did that at Zion. We asked the people at Zion who should be the next elder. And one of the names that came up, and this is gonna happen next week on October 4th, we're going to vote on a guy named, let's see, I'll show you here, who's going to be one of our next elders. There we go, John Johnson. I don't know if you know Mr. Johnson. He's been around at Zion. He and his family, there's his wife, and there's his 3 daughters, and they've been part of Zion Church for a long time. And we would like John to be be one of the elders and join the session. Add him to that group because he's been a good and wise husband, a good father for his daughters. He's worked hard in the church. People know him. They trust him. And so we're gonna do that. Now you don't get to be an elder until the congregation votes. So we get the congregation back together. It's kind of like when you get married. The husband the man can decide, I want to marry that girl, but he has to ask her, and she has to say yes. If she doesn't say yes, then you don't get married. And so when the congregation says, let's have John be our next elder, and so we have to ask John, will you do it? And he has to say yes, and then we come and we vote, and they have all the people of the church get together and vote and say, yes, we want John to be our next elder. So that's what we're going to do next week on Sunday morning, October 4th. We'll have a vote. And we believe the rest of the guys on the session are happy to commend John Johnson to the congregation. We hope that the congregation will look at him and vote for him, because I believe he'd be a great elder for many years to come. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. God gives us shepherds. He gives us, first of all, Jesus, but then he also gives us other men in the church who will care for the church, will watch out for the church, protect the church from trouble, and try to help the church to grow and be what it should be. And that is what I have for Zion Plus today. Thank you for watching.